Welcome everyone to Cheese Boards. My name is Mary and I will be leading this session for you. So first off, let's see. So a little bit about my background. I grew up in Wausau on the southeast side of town and attended Newman High School. I went to St. Mary's College in South Bend, Indiana, and I studied in Italy for a year, which is where I first fell in love with cheese, wine, and good food. I moved to Chicago after graduating and lived there for 12 years, working in a variety of fields. I worked as an elementary art teacher, a graphic designer, and at a few bars and restaurants before opening my own retail store. I owned a retail jewelry shop named Beadniks for 10 years. After reconnecting with a high school sweetheart, I got married, moved back home to Wausau, and now have a 2-year-old son named Jude and a second baby boy due in March. Okay. My husband's family has been in the cheese packaging industry for over 50 years, so a retail cheese shop seemed like a perfect fit for us. We purchased Naviv Fromagerie in May of 2019. Now, can you guys give me a show of hands who's familiar with Naviv Fromagerie? Okay, good, so quite a few of you, great. So for those that don't know, it's the cheese shop located at Stewart and 2nd Avenue in the same plaza as Katz & Barker's. So we renovated the space, kept all the specialty cheeses, added a lot more inventory, and reopened as the Milk Merchant in June of 2019. How many of you have been to the Milk Merchant? Okay, good. I know I see some familiar faces, so good. Thank you. Okay, enough about my background. Now for what you're all interested in, cheese boards. So we're gonna start with the real basics. Remember, you can always visit the Milk Merchant and ask your cheesemonger if you have any questions or for any suggestions. I know some people get intimidated when they get to the cheese counter, so we're always there to help, so don't be shy about your questions. This is just a nice visual that we'll kind of break down further, but it's a little small to see, but as you can kind of make out, you've got your cheeses, your fruits and nuts and meats, and then of course crackers and wine. A question we get asked a lot is, how much cheese should I buy and serve? Well, that of course depends on the appetite of your friends and families, and if you're serving anything in addition to your cheese. But as a general rule of thumb, we recommend 1 pound of cheese for every 5 guests. Something else very important that sometimes people forget to do is you should leave your cheese out for at least an hour before serving it. Cheese is supposed to be, and it tastes a lot better when it's at room temperature. And a third little tip, having good knives makes a huge difference. And using a different knife for each cheese is also recommended. Okay, here's a sample board we put together for 6 to 8 people. As you can see, we kept a few wedges of cheeses whole. We sliced 1 into triangles and chunked 1. Fresh raspberries, black mission figs, dried apricots, Marcona almonds, rice crackers, sliced salami, quince jam, and a sprig of rosemary finish it off. This is just one example. Boards, of course, can be a little smaller if you've got a group of 2 to 4 people, or much larger if you're hosting a party. Now, another question we get asked a lot is, what cheeses should I select? So when you're crafting a cheese board, it's best to choose a variety of cheeses. Cheeses vary by type of milk used to produce the cheese, style of cheese, shape, color, and texture. So this slide shows you different types of milk. So it's always good to kind of try one from each category if you're brave. Now, I know cow is one that most everyone loves, but goat and sheep milk cheeses are definitely gaining popularity. So if that's something that you haven't tried in a while, or if you've had a bad experience, we always encourage people to come back and give it another try, because we've been finding more and more people are falling in love with new styles of goat and sheep milk cheese. So just a few of our favorites. So for the cow, there's burrata, which is a very fresh, creamy mozzarella. The classic Beemster Gouda, which is an aged Gouda from the Netherlands. Pleasant Ridge Reserve, which is the most award-winning American cheese, made right in Wisconsin. And then for goat cheese favorites, Humboldt Fog is a California product that's really unique and delicious. Grumpy Goat and Avalon. Some of the sheep milk cheeses that we sell quite a bit, Roquefort, which is a blue cheese, Black Sheep Truffle, and Manchego, a Spanish sheep's cheese. Anybody love goat cheese here? Oh, good. Sheep's milk cheese too? Oh, good. Yes. So one way to classify cheese is to group it by style. So we have soft, semi-soft, semi-hard, and hard. Another good jumping off point is when you're putting together a cheese board, you can pick one from each style. I'll let you guys kind of look at the different styles, but you can either choose a brie or a mozzarella, or that's a picture of that goat cheese, that Humboldt Fog from California. And then some semi-soft examples would be blue Stilton and a Gouda. Semi-hard, moving down to the Manchego or a Comté. And of course, harder cheeses like aged cheddar, Parmesan. So that's a good place to start. If you're new to cheese boards, you can always start with a soft, a semi-soft, and a hard or a semi-hard. Okay, so again, we like to stress this. It's best to choose a variety of cheeses. Now, in addition to style or types of milk, you can also choose different shapes and colors. So when you're thinking about shape, you want to also think about when you're cutting it up and plating it on the board, what it's going to look like. Whether you want a whole wheel, whether you're going to do chunked pieces or cubes, square, rectangular, triangle. There's definitely a variety of options there. Of course, color can play a factor. We've got, your traditional white or cream colored cheeses. Flavored cheeses are always fun for a pop of color. If you've ever had an Irish Porter, cheddar, or the Merlot Bellavitano. Orange, we like to usually include a nice pop of orange, so you can get that from an aged Gouda or a nice aged cheddar. And blue cheese, some people love it, some people hate it, but people definitely have opinions on it. Anybody love it here? I know you do. Yeah, so that's good. If you don't know your party, it's always safe to at least put one option out. If you know people love it, that can be a really fun theme on a cheese board, is to include all different blue cheeses. We carry a nice variety at the store. And if you drizzle it with honey, that's also a nice, sweet little treat. Okay, how to cut cheese is another question that we get a lot. And you too can cut cheese like a pro with the right tools and tips. And like I mentioned, when choosing your selection of cheeses for a board, you want to consider how they'll portion out on your board. So as you can see in the picture, the round cheeses, like a brie, you want to use your wire or a soft cheese knife, and you can cut them kind of like a little cake. You can leave part of it whole and cut little pieces, or cut them all like little pieces of cake. something that's more of a wedge, like in the middle here, that's a manchego, that you want to turn on its side and slice, so you'll be left with nice triangles to fan out on your board. And then lastly, pictured is a harder cheese. When I say when you want a chunk of cheese, the harder cheeses lend more towards breaking, so you can put your knife in and twist and get those nice little organic chunks that you can pile on your board for a little texture, and so it's nice and portioned out for people. Okay, so now that we touched on how to portion cheese, I just wanted to show you a picture of some cheese knives and tools. So there's lots of different cheese knives out there. So I picked this slide so you could see, the large variety. And you definitely don't need all of these knives in your drawer, but having a few on hand can make a big difference. And if anybody wants pictures of the slides or anything for reference, I've got cards. I can email you copies of any of these. So feel free, if you want them for your reference, to reach out to me. On the top, these smaller knives are a perfect size if you have multiple cheeses on a board. For chunking cheeses, that Parmesan knife, something like that, or the spade, make for a nice little tool for poking in and breaking up your harder pieces of cheese. The soft cheese is the one with the holes in it. So if you're ever curious about why there's holes in those kind of knives, it's so when you're cutting through, this cheese doesn't get stuck all over the knife. It gives it a little air for breathing. The cheese plane, or the slicer, is nice. That's about halfway down the picture with that little ribbon. Let's see if this does work. This little one. That's nice if you want to make small ribbons or thin ribbons of cheese. You can use that and kind of fan out the cheese. That's always a nice touch. And then a wire, of course, is always handy, something like this, when you're cutting anything from soft to semi-hard cheeses. And if you've got harder cheeses that you want to slice, just a nice kitchen knife that's nice and sharp, a longer, thin, straight one, works well too. Okay, so once you've chosen your cheeses, the hard part's over, and now for the fun, which is adding all of the other accoutrements. So a vehicle to eat the cheese is always necessary, whether you choose crusty bread or crackers. That's always a hit. For crackers, a lot of times we recommend something that's not too flavorful, unless you're going for that flavor combination. You want something that's not going to overpower the flavor of your cheese. Cured meat, so salami, prosciutto, those are always popular. We slice to order at the store, so it'll be nice and fresh. Fresh seasonal fruit and vegetables. So it's always nice to go to the store or farmer's market and grab what's in season. Or if you're in Wisconsin, you can, whatever you can get, really. But we do have some good grocery stores here, so there's options. And fruit and veggies are a nice way to break up the board from having all cheese, add a little color, flavor. Dried fruits, we sell black mission figs and dried apricots. Those you can get year-round, so those are always good go-tos. Here's just a visual of some of those items. Meats, fruits, dried fruits, nuts. So continuing on, nuts like Marcona almonds, spiced pecans, candied walnuts, lots of good nut options out there that always work well with cheese. Something pickled or marinated, that's always a nice touch if you like something kind of savory. Olives, pickles, that kind of thing. That works really well too. With mustards and cheeses, you can kind of go the savory route versus the sweet route. If you do want to go the sweet route, then it's always great to do a little jar or a little container of fig jam, honey, quince preserves, all really tasty and pair well with cheeses. We also like to add, wild card additions depending on what your occasion is. You could do chocolate dipped fruit. We did a lot of holiday boards this year where we included some Christmas cookies. This is kind of where you can get creative. It's fun to kind of surprise your guests with different items they might not expect. And one finishing touch that always makes a big difference, even though it's just a little thing, is fresh herbs or flowers. So rosemary, sage, you can even get little edible flowers that you can plop on your board. That really elevates the look of it. So here's another sample cheese board. This one's got a nice mix of cheeses. We've got triple cream brie, Havarti, Comté, buttermilk blue, classic Beamster, again, some little jams, fruit, nuts, little basil and microgreens. So that can kind of just give you an idea of how you can mix it all together. Now, this might look really complicated to some people, but I'm gonna break it down step by step so you feel like you could maybe do this at home. So here's the board we're gonna break down step by step to demonstrate to you how you could arrange it like a pro. So here's the finished board. Now, I love these photos because it really shows you, step by step what to do. So after you cut your cheeses, you can start by placing the cheese on the board. And the cheese really is the star, so you want to make sure to start with these, place them where you want them, make sure there's enough room and it feels balanced. The second step is we call the salami river. So if your guests like meat, that's always a nice touch. You can, if it's a round piece of meat, you can fold it on itself once and then fold it again, and it'll fan out like a little rosette. So you don't need a whole bunch, you just need a handful of slices and you can fold them and make your little river. Then the third photo shows just the addition of fruits and vegetables. Again, you can mix it up, whatever you've got in your fridge or whatever you can find, kind of add it, break up spread out the reds, make it feel balanced. Oops. Okay, so next here is where you're adding the crunch. In this case, we've added nuts and crackers. So you can see, you can kind of sneak in some crackers here, sprinkle nuts there. Then you're gonna add your preserves. For preserves, you can do any kind of fresh jam. You could do like a fig preserve. You could add mustard. You could do a barbecue sauce. You can really kind of experiment here. And then the last is just adding the little garnish. So little sprigs of herbs and some little flowers. And on top of the mozzarella, there's some little basil as well. So beautiful and much easier to recreate when you kind of just think step by step. Okay, so now that I've shared some basics, I wanted to show you some inspirational boards. So a holiday is a great excuse for a fabulous cheese board. So here's a nice Valentine's Day board. Really pretty, romantic with the roses, some chocolate, some fruits. Nice little work of art. Okay, here's a fun one for game day. So chicken wings, chips, pretzels. There's a big Packer game coming up, so you could really impress your family and friends whip something like this up, and it's really not that complicated. It just looks like it. And then one last fun one, St. Patrick's Day is also around the corner. Here's a festive example, what you can do with color and maybe a cookie cutter. So you don't always need a party to make a fancy board, but it does help. So that's a chunk, oops. So that's a chunk of cheese cut with a cookie cutter. Yeah, I didn't make this board personally. This one's just an inspiration, but we have done a lot with cookie cutters and chunks of brie or cheese.
Is that dill in that big wedge of cheese up on the upper?
On the left here?
The upper right.
Oh, that's a sage and dill cheese. Yep. Yep. Yep, and like I said, it doesn't have to be a party. If you just wanted to get a little bit of cheese, you can always stop in. A cheese board makes for a great date night or a dinner party. Then you don't have as many dishes to clean up either. And it's just something alternative to a big heavy meal. Okay, so now that we've discussed plating a cheese board, I wanted to touch a little bit about pairing cheese. So I know pairing can be really intimidating, but remember it should be fun, and I wanted to just share a few tips that I've learned. So balance. You want to pay attention to balance. You don't want one taste to overpower the other. Texture. Texture is another really key area. So richer cheeses succeed when they pair with something that's effervescent, like a beer or wine. For example, if you've had a thick, creamy triple cream brie, that's really nice when you cut it with a little champagne. You want to think about mouthfeel and texture when you're pairing. Another great statement to follow is what grows together goes together. So this really stems from European cultures where farmers grew crops and raised animals for their communities, and the vineyards in the surrounding areas would produce wine to complement them. A lot of sommeliers at restaurants will guide you in this direction as well, but it does work. There's no guarantee that it'll work, but if you're ever curious or just want to try something, pairing something from the same region usually does work. Another principle is complements or like with like. So maybe it sounds like common sense, but complementary tastes really do have the potential to elevate one another and elevate your sensory experience. So if you think about an acidic wine like a Sauvignon Blanc, and you pair that with an acidic fresh Chev, it's really good together. Both just taste so much better when you have them in conjunction with one another. So another one, contrast or opposites attract. So on the other hand, you can find harmony in contrast. So if you think of the classic sweet and salty combination, you can take a nice strong blue cheese, maybe that'll clash with a big-bodied red wine, and it can pair really nice with a sweeter red wine, for example. And we always encourage people to experiment. These are only guidelines, they're not rules. Of course, each pairing has its ups and its downs, so the only way to know is to try. And in the end, if you like it and it agrees with your palate, then it's a successful pairing. And you're the expert on what you like, so try new things, right? This one's just to give you a fun illustration of some wine and cheese pairings that work. And as you can see, a lot of the cheeses pair with multiple wines, so don't feel like you have to pick a Gouda and pick a Pinot Noir or pick a Cheddar and pick this. You know, there's options. So depending on what flavor profile you're going for, multiple wines work for cheese. So you can see Gouda can do Merlot or Pinot Grigio, Brie, Champagne, Rosé, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir. So anybody have a favorite pairing they want to share? Don't be shy. Yes?
I like to do pears, slices of fresh pear with a Stilton or a nice Roquefort, and then drizzle a little bit of balsamic on top of it. It's been one of the pairings that our family uses.
Ooh, I love that. Yum. What kind of balsamic do you do? Just like a
Well, I find some of the flavored balsamics, so
nice.
the other night I used a fig balsamic.
Yes.
I had sometimes a honey pear balsamic I have found. I sweeten it.
Yum, yes, that's a perfect example. Getting a little salty from the blue, a little sweet from the pear, and then the balsamic gives you that kind of savory finish. Yes, that's a perfect example. Anyone else have any examples that they love? No?
You have a mixture of a cheese though that I tried. It's the camembert with the gorgonzola.
Oh yeah, Cambozola.
Camembert.
Yep. Yes, that's a great one. Okay, so we guess we already kind of went through the favorites. Now the fun part. So we're going to do a sample. So all the photos, I'm sure, made you crave cheese and wine. So I decided to bring everyone a sample. I've got little containers up here with Hook's 2-year aged cheddar, a little black mission fig, and a candied walnut. And for those of you that want a little splash of wine, I just brought a little Chardonnay, just kind of a house Chardonnay, just for a little something fun. So, yeah, I guess if you guys have any questions first before we do the samples, and then we can hand out the samples after that. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes?
You serve everyone a knife with, a fork and a plate separately?
When I'm serving a cheese board? So if you're serving a cheese board, I would do a separate knife per cheese. But if you're cutting it up on the board and then you leave a knife there, then people can use their fingers.
Just finger food?
After they get it off of your board, they could use their fingers. If you want to use a little forks or knives, you're more than welcome to, though.
Up on a plate?
On the board itself, you'd be good with just a knife or a little fork and a knife.
So you're just, feeding 4 or 5 people?
Yep. And if someone's, like something like,
She's talking about the individual person. Do you give the individual person who's eating it at their own plate?
I would serve a small plate with the board, but I don't think people would necessarily need an additional knife. If they cut it off your board or take the little piece that you've portioned, they might not need their own knife.
They don't need a little fork?
Some people like to. I like to just use my fingers. Anyone else like to use a knife or fork or?
Does Emily Post said they do what the hostess does?
Yes, you could always put out silverware for people for etiquette. Yeah.
I was concerned a little bit, because I saw the almonds that you had in there that were laced in, and the question along with the one that this woman said here is that, would you have like a spoon or something to go in there? I'm just concerned that somebody that's reaching in there grabbing those almonds are gonna get their fingers around the salami and the cheeses and all that. It looks very decorative like that, but I almost feel like I would like to have everybody have a little spoon and go in there, scoop a little bit, pull that out. I don't want your fingers all throughout everybody else's food.
I get you. When we serve something like this, let's say, we put a little. Yeah, it depends if it's, when we're serving to like a banquet or something, we definitely put extra tongs and extra serving things. We like I usually do a spoon for nuts, tongs for the cheese, a knife for like a full wedge, and then a little spreader for your preserves.
Good.
Yeah, we want it food safety, that's for sure. Yeah, there you go.
I was wondering if we'd have to bring in our own boards, or if you have the boards there for us.
Good question. So we do both. We do have boards you can purchase. We've got slate, wood, melamine, granite, all sorts. If you're having an event at your house and you want your own boards, a lot of times people will bring those in ahead of time, and then we'll arrange cheese boards on your board so it looks nice and finished at your house. We also do rent boards out for events. So we have large wooden that we'll bring to your event for you, and then we just take a deposit and you can return them. And then another option, we have our craft disposable boards. So if you don't want to worry about returning something or washing something, we have that option as well. Another trend is putting down parchment paper and kind of arranging right on your table like a harvest style. So a little more messy, but kind of fun too. And then you don't have the guidelines of the size of a board.
Talk to me about brie. I find it horrible to use that rind.
Well, it depends on what brie you're buying. You know, sometimes a grocery store brie, we get people coming in saying, well, this doesn't taste like any brie that I've ever had. So I think the quality of the brie makes a big difference. But some people don't like the rind of.
So do you eat it?
Yes.
You do eat it.
So that's a good question for rinds. Anything is edible that's not wax or cloth. So,
What is the rind is the sort of cloth?
so that's a soft ripened cheese. So the way that cheese ripens, it ripens from the outside in. So that develops like a mold. So you might just not like that part. Go for like a harder cheese. We've got a lot of good options. A lot of people don't like soft cheeses.
But I never know. Do I eat this?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. But yes, you don't have to eat it. A lot of people don't, but it is edible. Yeah, that's a great question though. So for rinds, if it's wax or cloth, you want to avoid it. Anything else is fair game. Yes.
Carry the 6-inch brie for those baked pots?
We carry, yes, like a traditional round brie from Wisconsin actually that's great for a baking dish. And then we carry a triple cream brie from France that you can cut to order, but that one comes in triangles once you cut it, because we get it in a large wheel. But they're both good. Yes?
Those little baby cow things?
The little mozzarella balls?
No, the little baby cow things, soft cheese inside.
Baby bell type?
Oh, Baby Bell? You know, I don't, but I wouldn't be opposed to maybe getting some of those. Those are good little snacks.
Or do you have anything like that?
We don't have any really small prepackaged, but we do have cheese that tastes similar. We've got a really good crema casa that comes in a wheel, but it's got that same great flavor. A lot of good questions. Anyone else have questions?
How does your Stilton cup? Does it come in cheddar, wet cheddar, and then Stilton and cheddar again? Or do you...
The Stilton we carry is a blue Stilton from England, and it's just the blue Stilton. It comes in a big wheel like this, and then we cut it to order whether you want a quarter pound or a pound, half pound.
Is that the bullet up there?
Let's see. It was pictured somewhere.
That's what she's looking at. Quick.
That picture is the Merlot Bellavitano. This one here, that's a purple, that's a Merlot, and this is a Brie, Manchego, and then Gouda.
I have a question.
Yeah,
What is Stilton cheese?
it's a kind of blue cheese made in England.
Okay.
It's a nice, strong, flavorful blue. You're gonna have to come in and try it.
Well, I've had Stilton before.
There are
I just
different.
didn't know.
Yeah, there's different varieties of Stilton. We currently carry just a blue Stilton right now, but it is that does range.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you guys.